Clan Fraser of Lovat is a Highland Scottish clan. The Clan Fraser of Lovat has been strongly associated with Inverness and the surrounding area since the clan's founder gained lands there in the 13th century. But Lovat is in fact a junior branch of the Clan Fraser who were based in the Aberdeenshire area. Both the Clan Fraser and the Clan Fraser of Lovat have their own separate clan chiefs who are recognised by the Lord Lyon, King of Arms under Scottish law. The Clan Fraser of Lovat in Inverness-shire has historically dominated local politics and been active in every major military conflict involving Scotland. It has also played a considerable role in most major political turmoils. Fraser remains the most prominent family name within the Inverness area. The clan's current chief is Simon Fraser, the 16th Lord Lovat, and 26th Chief of Clan Fraser. History. Origins of the surname. The exact origins of the surname Fraser cannot be determined with any great certainty, although there is little doubt that it came from France. The first reputed record is that of Fraser, recorded on the Battle Abbey roll, supposedly a list of William the Conqueror's companions, preserved at Battle Abbey, on the site of his great victory over Harold. However, the authenticity of the manuscript is seriously doubted. The first definite record of the name in Scotland occurs in the mid-12th century as de Fresel, de Frisel, and de Freselera, and appears to be an Angevin name. Although there is no known place name in France that corresponds with it, the French surname Freselera or de la Freselera or Freso de la Freselera, apparent in France to this day, corresponds with Scottish version in spelling and traditional area of origin, Anjou. Indeed, apparently while in exile in France, Simon Fraser, 11th Lord Lovat, entered into a formal league of amity, and declared an alliance with the French Marquis de la Freselera and claimed common origin from the Les Seigneurs de la Freselera. The first annual gathering of the Clan Fraser in Canada in 1894 also recalls this connection. Finally, this ancient connection with Anjou is described in detail in the 18th century document Le Dictionnaire de la Noblesse. This document states that a Simon Fresel was born to the knightly Fresel family from Anjou and, sometime after the year 1030, established himself in Scotland. It also states that Simon Fresel's descendants multiplied and eventually became known as Frasers. This would also explain the prevalence of the name Simon throughout clan history, as all Frasers would have the knight Simon Fresel as a distant but common ancestor. Another tradition claims derivation from a Frenchman called Pierre Fraser, Seigneur de Troyes, who came to Scotland in the reign of Charlemagne to form an alliance with the mythical King Achaius. Pierre's son was then to have become Thane of the Isle of Man in 814. Yet another explanation for the surname is that it is derived from the French words fraise, meaning strawberry, and fraisiers, strawberry plants. There is a fabled account of the Fraser coat of arms which asserts during the reign of Charles the Simple of France, a nobleman from Bourbon named Julius de Berry entertained the king with a dish of fine strawberries. De Berry was then later knighted, with the knight taking strawberry flowers as his arms and changing his name from de Berry to Fraser or Freselera. His direct descendants were to become the lords of Needpath Castle, then known as Oliver. This origin has been disputed, and seen as a classic example of canting heraldry, where heraldic symbols are derived from a pun on similar-sounding surname. Early phrases. Around the reign of William the Lion, there was a mass of Norman immigration into Scotland. Thomas Grey, a 14th-century English knight, Lovat listed several Norman families which took up land during William's reign. Among those listed, the families of Mowbray, Ramsay, Laundels, Vallones, Boys and Fraser are certainly probably introduced under King William. The earliest written record of Frasers in Scotland is in 1160, when a Simon Fraser held lands in East Lothian at Keith. In that year, he made the gift of a church to the Tyronsian monks at Kelso Abbey. The Frasers moved into Tweeddale in the 12th and 13th centuries and from there into the counties of Stirling, Angus, Inverness and Aberdeen. Wars of Scottish Independence. During the Scottish Wars of Independence, Sir Simon Fraser, known as the Patriot, fought first with the Red Cummin, and later with Sir William Wallace and Robert the Bruce. Sir Simon is celebrated for having defeated the English at the Battle of Roslin in 1303, with just 8,000 men under his command. At the Battle of Methven in 1306, Sir Simon Fraser led troops along with Bruce and saved the king's life in 3 separate instances. Simon was allegedly awarded the 3 crowns which now appear in the Lovat arms for these 3 acts of bravery. He was however captured by the English and executed with great cruelty by Edward I of England in 1306, in the same barbaric fashion as Wallace. At the Battle of Bannockburn in 1314, Sir Simon's cousin, Sir Alexander Fraser of Touch Fraser and Cowie, was much more fortunate. He fought at Bannockburn, married Bruce's sister, and became Chamberlain of Scotland. The Frasers of Philith, who are chiefs of the senior Clan Fraser, trace the lineage from this Alexander. Alexander's younger brother, another Sir Simon Fraser, was the ancestor of the chiefs of the Clan Fraser of Lovat. This Simon Fraser was killed at the Battle of Culloden Hill in 1333, along with his younger brothers Andrew and James. 15th and 16th century clan conflicts. As most all Highlanders, the Frasers have been involved in countless instances of clan warfare, particularly against the MacDonalds. 2 Gaelic war cries of the Frasers have been generally recognised. The first, Case Childuni, refers to the ancestral castle and clan seat which once existed near the present Beaufort Castle. The second is Amhoarfesh. According to some accounts, the Frasers under Lord Lovat supported the Munros at the Battle of Ballinambrog in 1452, which was fought against the Clan Mackenzie. There are also accounts of Fraser Lord Lovat supporting the Munros at the Battle of Clagnagharry, fought 2 years later in 1454. In 1544, the Frasers fought a great clan battle, the Battle of the Shirts, against the Clan MacDonald of Clan Ranald, over the disputed chiefship of Clan Ranald. The Frasers, as part of a large coalition, backed a son of the 5th chief, Ranald Galder, which the MacDonalds found unacceptable. The Earl of Argyll intervened, refusing to let the 2 forces engage. But on the march home, the 300 Frasers were ambushed by 500 MacDonalds. Only 5 Frasers and 8 MacDonalds are said to have survived the battle. Both the clan chief, Hugh Fraser, 3rd Lord Lovat, and his son were amongst the dead and were buried at Beaulieu Priory. At the siege of Inverness in 1562, the Clan Fraser of Lovat supported Mary, Queen of Scots. Scottish historian George Buchanan, a contemporary, wrote that when the unfortunate princess went to Inverness in 1562, as soon as they heard of the sovereign's danger, a great number of the most eminent Scots poured in around her, especially the Frasers and Munros, who were esteemed the most valiant of the clans inhabiting those countries in the north. These 2 clans took Inverness Castle for the Queen. The Queen later hanged the governor, a Gordon, who had refused her admission. In the 16th century, a battle took place between the Clan Fraser and the Clan Logan at Keswick, where Gilligorm, the chief of the Clan Logan, was killed. 17th century and civil war in 1645. At the Battle of Auld Erne in Ayrnshire, the clan opposed the royalist leader James Graham, 1st Marquess of Montrose, and fought under a Fraser of Stry. The battle left 87 Fraser widows. A poem about the battle reads, in 1649 the Clan Fraser of Lovat, under Colonel Hugh Fraser, assaulted Inverness Castle for a second time, this time during a royalist rising, along with John Munro of Lemler, Thomas Urquhart and Thomas Mackenzie of Pluscardine. They were all opposed to the authority of the current Parliament, assaulted the town and took the castle in what is now known as the Siege of Inverness. They then expelled the garrison and razed the fortifications. However, on the approach of the parliamentary forces led by General Leslie, the clans retreated back into Ross-shire. Over the next year, several skirmishes took place between these parties. During the Siege of Inverness, the Covenant of Frasers of Lovat under Sir James Fraser of Bray successfully defended Inverness Castle against the Royalists. In 1650, at the Battle of Dunbar, the Clan Fraser fought against the forces of Oliver Cromwell. However, the Covenanters were defeated. In 1651, the Clan Fraser joined the army of Charles II at Stirling. They fought at the Battle of Worcester, where the King's army was defeated by Oliver Cromwell's New Model Army. In 1689, the Glorious Revolution deposed the Roman Catholic King James VII as monarch of England, replacing the king with his Protestant daughter Mary and her husband and cousin William of Orange. Swiftly following in March, a convention of the estates was convened in Edinburgh, which supported William and Mary as joint-in monarchs of Scotland. However, to much of Scotland, particularly in the Highlands, James was still considered the rightful, legitimate king. On the 16th of April 1689, John Graham of Claverhouse, Viscount of Dundee, later known as Bonnie Dundee, raised the royal standard of the recently deposed King James VII on the hilltop of Dundee Law. Many of the Highland clans rallied swiftly to his side. The chief of the Clan Fraser, Hugh Fraser, tried to keep the members of his clan from joining the uprising, to no avail. The clan marched without him, and fought at the Battle of Killiecrankie. 18th century and Jacobite risings. Jacobite Rising of 1715. During the Jacobite Rising of 1715, Simon Fraser, 11th Lord Lovat, the Fox, chief at the time, supported the British government and surrounded the Jacobite garrison in Inverness. The Clan MacDonald of Keppoch attempted to relieve the garrison, but when the path was blocked by the Frasers, Keppoch retreated. The Inverness garrison surrendered to Fraser on the same day that the Battle of Sheriff Muir was fought, and another Jacobite force was defeated at the Battle of Preston. In 1719, the British general, Joseph Whiteman, passed through Fraser country en route to the Battle of Glenshiel and gathered with him Fraser of Lovat's men as he went. In 1725, the British Field Marshal George Wade gave instructions that had come to him from George I of Great Britain to re-establish the independent Highland companies of soldiers to support the British government. Chief Simon Fraser, 11th Lord Lovat, was appointed as captain of one of these independent Highland companies. However, Wade complained to George II of Great Britain that the independent Highland companies had been infiltrated by Jacobitism and demanded that the king take action. Wade put up Lord Lovat's captaincy as the first to go. In 1740, George II demanded action and Wade stepped in and stripped Lovat of his company of Frasers, putting them under command elsewhere. Wade also advised the government to remove Lord Lovat from his office as High Sheriff of Inverness-shire. As a result, Simon Fraser, 11th Lord Lovat, later gave his support to the Jacobite leader Charles Edward Edward Stuart, and when asked why he had engaged with the prince after receiving so many favours from the government, he replied that he did it more in revenge to the ministry for having taken away his independent company than anything else. Frasers were on the front lines of the Jacobite army at the Battle of Falkirk and the Battle of Culloden in 1746. At Culloden, Charles Fraser of Inverness-shire, who led the clan at the battle, was mortally wounded and found by General Hawley on the field, who ordered one of his aides, a young James Wolfe, to finish him off with a pistol. Wolfe refused, so Hawley got a common soldier to do it. David Fraser of Glenurquhart, who was deaf and mute, had, it was said, charged and killed 7 redcoats, but was captured and died in prison. John Fraser, also called Mokiva, was shot in the knee, taken prisoner and put before a firing squad, but was then rescued by a British officer, Lord Boyd, who was sick of the slaughter. Another John Fraser, who was provost of Inverness, tried to get fair treatment for the prisoners. As the first of the Jacobites fleeing from Culloden approached Inverness, they were met by a battalion of Frasers led by the 11th Lord Lovat's son, Simon Fraser, Master of Lovat. Tradition states that the Master of Lovat immediately about turned his men and marched down the road back towards Inverness, with pipes playing and colours flying. There are however varying traditions as to what happened at the bridge which spans the River Ness. One tradition is that Simon Fraser, Master of Lovat, intended to hold the bridge until he was persuaded against it. Another is that the bridge was seized by a party of the Campbell of Argyll militia who were involved in a skirmish when blocking the crossing of retreating Jacobites. While it is almost certain there was a skirmish upon the bridge, it has been proposed that Simon Fraser, Master of Lovat, shrewdly switched sides and turned upon the fleeing Jacobites. Such an act would explain his remarkable rise in fortune in the years that followed. He escaped punishment, and was pardoned, later raising a Fraser regiment for the British Army which fought in Canada in the 1750s, including Quebec. After the battle, the same year, Culloden was burnt to the ground, while the Simon Fraser, 11th Lord Lovat, the Fox, was on the run. He was captured, tried for treason, and executed in London on the 9th of April 1747, and his estates and titles were forfeited to the Crown. Aftermath of Culloden, Culloden was replaced by a small square building costing £300 in which the Royal Commissioner resided until 1774, when some of the forfeited Lovat estates were granted by an Act of Parliament to his son, Simon Fraser, Master of Lovat, by then a Major General, in recognition of his military service to the Crown and the payment of some £20,000. Later, 2 modest wings were added. On the death of General Fraser's younger half-brother, Colonel Archibald Campbell Fraser of Lovat, without legitimate surviving male issue, the Lovat estates were transferred by entail to Thomas Alexander Fraser of Strichen, a distant cousin who was descended from Thomas Fraser of Knockey and Amp, Strichen, second son of Alexander Fraser, 4th Lord Lovat. Knockey was sold about 1727 to Hugh Fraser of Balnain. Frasers in the New World 7 Years' War. Under the chief, Simon, a regiment of Frasers, the 78th Fraser Highlanders, numbering 1,400, were raised and fought the French and Indians in the colonies and in Canada, from 1757 to 1759. Interestingly, the 78th fought under General Wolfe, who had previously fought at the Battle of Culloden against Simon and perhaps some of the 78th. It was one of the 78th, possibly Simon, possibly one of his men, whose familiarity with the French language saved the first wave of British troops at the Battle of the Plains of Abraham, which led to the capture of Quebec. American rebellion. In the fight against American independence, Simon, who was by this time a general, raised 2,300 men, the 71st Fraser Highlanders. He recruited 2 battalions at Inverness, Stirling and Glasgow. Most of the men were not Frasers, for the number of Frasers had been substantially reduced after the Battle of Culloden and the end of the clan system. Fighting on the continental side was Percival Fraser, said to be a relative of Simon, whose ancestors had left the Highlands before the Jacobite Rising. Diaspora. Many Frasers settled in Canada and the United States after the war against the French in Quebec. Many others later emigrated to those countries and to Australia and New Zealand. Frasers in the U.S. have continued the proud military tradition, fighting on both sides of the American Civil War. Frasers from both sides of the Atlantic fought in the Great War and the Second World War. Fraser Tartans. 2 chiefs. On the 1st of May 1984, by decree of the Court of the Lord Lyon, the 21st Lady Sultan, a member of the royal family, was made chief of the name and arms of the whole Clan Fraser. Lord Lovat, Simon Christopher Joseph Fraser, was reported to have not given any heed to the decision, dismissing the matter as being beneath him. Since this decree, there has been much confusion as to who was the chief of the Clan Fraser. Many believe that this decree made the Lady Sultan the chief of the clan. However, the Lord Lyon did not grant the chiefship of the Clan Fraser, just a description of chief of the name and arms. The Lord Lyon does not have power over the chief of a Highland clan. What the decree did was reinforce the Lady Sultan's claim to being the head of the senior branch of the wider Fraser family, and granted her the use of the plain and undifferenced Fraser arms. The arms of Clan Fraser of Lovat are quarterly, 1st and 4th azure, 3 Frasers argent, 2nd and 3rd gules, 3 antique crowns or in layman's terms, the traditional 3 cinquefoils, or Frasers, as they have come to be known, in the 1st and 4th positions and 3 crowns in the 2nd and 3rd positions. Only the Lord Lovat is allowed use of these arms, plain and undifference. Castles that have been owned by the Clan Fraser of Lovat have included, amongst others, Culloden was the name of the original seat of the chief of Clan Fraser of Lovat, located 2.5 miles southwest of Beaulieu, Inverness-shire. The original castle came to the Frasers of Lovat in the 13th century and was besieged by the English in 1303. In 1650 Culloden was captured and damaged by Oliver Cromwell. The clan chief, Simon Fraser, 11th Lord Lovat, was executed in 1747 for supporting the Jacobite cause, and Culloden was subsequently destroyed. However, his son, also called Simon, recovered the property in 1771. The Fraser of Lovat titles were all restored by 1857 and the castle was rebuilt as Beaufort Castle in 1882. The family had to sell the new castle in the 1990s because of debt, but they still live near Beaulieu. Castle Heather, near Inverness, is the site of a castle held by the Frasers, most notably as the seat of James Fraser of Castle Leathers. Cherry Island, near Fort Augustus, is the site of a castle once held by the Frasers and that is said to have had a brownie. Dalcross Castle, at Dalcross, Inverness-shire, was held by the Frasers of Lovat, who built the castle in 1620, but it passed to the Macintoshes in the early 18th century. Urchless Castle, near Beaulieu, Inverness-shire, was held by the Frasers but passed by marriage to the clan Chisholm in 15th century. Moniat Castle, near Beaulieu, Inverness-shire, was held by the Frasers of Lovat. Reelig House, near Beaulieu, Inverness-shire, has been held by the Frasers since the 17th century and the Frasers of Reelig still live there. Military regiments. Frasers have always been known for the fighting spirit and the skill in the art of war. Frasers have fought in many wars, from defending Scottish lands against invading Danes and Norse, to the Scottish Wars of Independence, to the Jacobite risings, both world wars, and they continue to serve today. Among the organised regiments were an independent Highland company in 1745 that fought at the Battle of Culloden, and the 2nd Highland Battalion, formed in January 1757. The 62nd Regiment of Foot, formed 1757, was soon redesignated as the 78th Fraser Highlanders in 1758, and retired as a fighting unit in 1763, but the unit is still active as a fundraising organisation under the authority of the law.The. The 71st Fraser Highlanders formed in October 1775, and consisted of 2 battalions raised at Inverness, Stirling and Glasgow for service in North America. They were disbanded in 1786. The Fraser Fencibles Regiment was raised by Culloden, Archibald Campbell Fraser of Lovat, as a home guard in the event of an invasion by Napoleon Bonaparte. The Fraser Fencibles served in the Irish Rebellion of 1798. The Lovat Scouts, formed in January 1900 by Simon Joseph Fraser, for service in the Second Boer War, saw extensive action during the Great War and the Second World War, and now consist of a platoon, Company C, of the 51st Highland Volunteers. The modern clan. Today the Clan Fraser is composed of many thousands all over the world. Large Fraser populations exist in Canada and the United States, and smaller populations are in Australia, New Zealand, Turkey, South Africa, Argentina, Chile and Brazil, not to mention those who never left Scotland. In 1951, the Lord Lovat Simon Christopher Joseph Fraser was able to muster some 7,000 Frasers to the family seat at Beaufort Castle, and in 1997, some 30–40,000 Frasers from 21 different countries came to Castle Fraser over a period of 4 days for a worldwide clan gathering.